We're coming up on the fourth week of former crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried's fraud trial. Over the past 3 weeks, the prosecution presented its share of witnesses, including 3 of Bankman-Fried's closest colleagues who delivered testimonies against him. Well, now it's the defense's turn to present their case. The question remains, will SBF testify? We have Brady, crypto reporter for Axios, here to tell us more. Good to see you again. So, with that in mind, will he or won't he? And is it going to make it better or worse for him, you think, if he does testify?
I think there's almost no reason for him not to testify. The trial is going so bad, and it's hard to imagine that they've got, anything super compelling from the defense's side. Their only hope is that, Sam could potentially charm the jury or, sort of spin a story that they find fascinating and sort of knock out a couple of the charges. The biggest danger in my mind, normally clients are advised not to testify, right? But it's just the case against him is so strong at this point. The only danger I see for him is sort of irritating Judge Kaplan, so that if he is ultimately convicted, the person who decides his sentence, if he finds something he says, unappealing, he could give him a worse sentence. So that to me is the biggest danger. But it's in such a bad state. It's like, why wouldn't he take the stand?
So then, what is he going to need to prove at this point?
Okay, so the crucial thing is, and this is what is weird about these kinds of cases, is he doesn't need to show that he didn't take a bunch of customer money. He needs to show that he didn't have fraudulent intent. And that's what could save him. Like, if he didn't actually think he was committing a crime, if he didn't actually believe he was doing something wrong, then he hasn't committed fraud, as weird as that is. You can take $8 billion from people, but if you don't think that you were doing the wrong thing, if you thought it was legal, then it isn't really fraud. So, if he can convince the jury that his mind and his heart were really in the right place, they might end up not convicting him of fraud. Though it does, based on everything we've seen, it feels like a real long shot.
And honestly, usually in these cases, those closest to you would speak on your behalf. In this case, those are the ones actually testifying against him in his inner circle. Who then do you think, witness-wise, could potentially step up here for SBF?
I mean, we haven't heard anything about someone involved at FTX or an investor or anything like that being planned to take the stands. But of note, in this courtroom, they don't actually have to tell us in the public ahead of time. So they could have somebody. The only witnesses that we know of right now is there's 3 expert witnesses that may or may not take the stand. The judge knocked out a bunch of the expert witnesses that the defense wanted to bring, but there's 3 left. So those could come up, but there's no one that we know of so far to counter Caroline, Nishad, and Gary. There's no one who it seems that we know of so far who would make the argument for Sam that within the company what he was doing looked like the right idea. The perhaps most notable thing that happened, besides the 3 of them, is his lawyer took the stand last week, or FTX's lawyer, Ken Sun, took the stand and said, look, I definitely never advised that any use of customer funds was okay. I didn't know it was happening until the day before I resigned on November 11th. And that looks really terrible for the defense, because one of the arguments that we know they wanted to make was that Sam was acting under the advice of counsel. In other words, he had lawyers who said what he was doing is okay. Well, the FTX lawyer testified he definitely didn't say that. And so, again, it just looks terrible for him.
So then how difficult is it to prove intention based on what we've seen with his exchanges, DMs with reporters about lobbying and his other interactions and the surprises that came out? Do we get the sense that he's on the right track for proving his intention?
We definitely don't get that sense. But the thing is, to keep in mind, it's only been the prosecution thus far. The defense has not started to make their case. But, when you look at the fact that, it isn't just that in the FTX terms of service, it suggested they wouldn't use customer funds, but he went before Congress. He went before the House and the Senate and said, we don't use customer funds. We segregate everything. We keep everyone's funds really safe. He said that out loud. It's going to be really hard to convince the jury, yes, I lied about that. I lied about that in the halls of power in Washington, D.C. I lied about that on C-SPAN. But it's still, my heart was in the right place. I didn't have fraudulent intent. I just, it seems like an impossible lift to make. But that's what he has to do somehow to keep out of jail.
So, Brady, what are you going to be watching for in this coming week? Obviously, a lot of crypto investors probably watching, regulators as well, although the industry does seem to be, moving beyond him at the moment.
Yeah, I do think broadly SBF's impact on the crypto market is over. Now, if it is true that the FTX debtors recover most of the money that people lost, that's going to be a ton of potential investment coming forward. But in terms of what I'm watching on the trial, yeah, like, does Sam take the stand? It seems likely that he will. Is there anyone from within FTX who will take the stand to support him, or other people who are involved in the FTX world, such as investors? That's the biggest question for me. And then how long is he on the stand for, and how well does he stand up to prosecution's questioning if he does? Right now, I think all of us, there's sort of a gang that's formed at the courthouse every day. And I think all of us expect Sam to take the stand. And we really think that he's probably going to be the defense's main witness, besides maybe a couple sort of technical experts who lead off to try to undermine some of the prior testimony from the prosecution. But yeah, it seems like Sam will be most of the case. And I think this case will actually end up wrapping surprisingly soon, sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I know we'll check back with you and get that word on the ground. Appreciate you joining us as always. Brady Dale, crypto
Thank you.
reporter for Axios. Thank you so much.